we know that if a majority of this revenue is being dedicated toward digital, what does that mean for radio stations? How important is it for radio stations to reposition themselves to talk about all of the different capabilities that you just mentioned, geo-targeting, push notifications, newsletters, and things of that nature, from more than just radio stations, but to be seen and revered as a multimedia company?
Well, sure. What we found is that, nobody's anti-radio in terms of advertising. However, they need products and services seen and heard everywhere.
Welcome to As a Result. I'm your host, Ashley Smith, founder and CEO of Dimensions Media. We're bringing you conversations with media leaders covering the latest news and trends in broadcast radio, television, streaming, podcasting, and digital publishing. Today, I'm speaking with Skip Dillard about digital opportunities to maximize radio's brand and sales strategies. At the time of our interview, Skip was brand manager at WXBK 94.7 The Block NYC. I'm happy to share that Skip is now vice president of Rhythmic AC and Throwback format at Audacy. Skip and I know each other from our days at Amos Communications. Skip is the former program director of WBLS 107.5, and I am the former digital sales strategist. We've spent countless hours brainstorming and executing advertising campaigns. For those unfamiliar with the role of the program director or brand manager, Skip will share his career journey and explain his role and responsibilities. Let's join the conversation.
Thank you so much, Ashley. I appreciate it, and always good to connect with you. We spend so much time just talking the industry. It's good kind of to bring our conversations out to the people a little bit.
Yes, I want to let them be a fly on the wall
Let's go.
So you have an extensive career. So I want to start off by letting you just share your journey, just to help our audience understand what it is that you do for someone that might not be familiar with it. And then what we're going to do is just going to go a little bit further to explain why your role is so critical to achieving digital sales success.
Well, sure. I'm a product of a historically black college. I think that Hampton University really helped to shape my interest in media and broadcasting. And previously, before that, when I was in high school, my mother's best friend's daughter was the program director of WNAA in Greensboro, North Carolina, where I grew up after we left New York City. And WNAA was the on-campus radio station, non-commercial, of North Carolina A&T State University. So in high school, my mother's friend's daughter would, have me come by, ask if I'd like to sit in sometime and observe, and that's what I did. And so I worked when I got to Hampton at WHOV, the campus station there, and during summers I wound up finally on air at WNAA. So they really shaped my interest in, I guess, the microphone and everything from transmitters to production boards and all of the elements that go into, at that time, making a radio station. Career-wise, started in New Orleans, Louisiana, worked in some great markets, including Detroit, Buffalo, New York. Been through San Francisco. Took off from radio to write for Billboard magazine for a year for their Airplay Monitor publication, writing top 40 in urban. Then missed radio too much, but Washington D.C. before I came to New York in 2008. So I've had a chance to work in some great radio markets. Can't forget Buffalo either. Great experience in Buffalo, New York.
So tell us a little bit more now about what exactly you do as a brand manager, and what is the difference between a brand manager and a program director?
Both are the same jobs, but the roles of both have changed significantly. Today, it is much more strategic, much more data, much more teamwork. In order to really survive in this business, at some point you're going to work for a very large company, or at least one that's fairly large. And so there's a lot of things that we are involved in constantly that involve a team of people, from digital to production hubs. Every station used to have a person that did all the commercials locally. Well, we have production hubs for Audacy. One's in Philadelphia. I typically use a guy out of Chicago. So, it's really learning how to, number one, be a master of time management, because you're reaching out to people outside of your market. And also, because of the digital space, technology is crucial. Understanding, what push notifications are, understanding how a digital campaign will mirror an on-air campaign, geo-targeting, data and analytics are probably how my job has changed the most.
Oh, that's awesome. You are taking us directly into where I want to begin. Earlier this week, the Radio Advertising Bureau and Burrell released a report. And the reason why we're here is to talk about the increase in revenue. And right now, how a lot of this revenue right now is being concentrated toward digital, as you just said, data and metrics. And that's what we're using to drive the decisions that we're making. So we know that if a majority of this revenue is being dedicated toward digital, what does that mean for radio stations? You started when digital was not even a thing, right? How important is it for radio stations to reposition themselves to talk about all of the different capabilities that you just mentioned, geo-targeting, push notifications, newsletters, and things of that nature, from more than just radio stations, but to be seen and revered as a multimedia company?
Well, sure. What we found is that, nobody's anti-radio in terms of advertising. However, they need products and services seen and heard everywhere. And I'll preface it by just giving you a quick background. Radio stations used to reach listeners by going out into the community, and that's still crucial. Trust me, there's great data, great things to be learned from seeing people one on one every single day. But in a place like New York, for instance, I could take a couple of vans, wrap them, and drive hundreds and hundreds of miles a week all around New York City, all through the five boroughs, all through Southern Connecticut, all through New Jersey. And very few people who we'd want to reach would ever see us or ever engage with us. When you're talking about reaching a marketplace with 13.8 million people, number one, I don't need to reach but a small fraction of that. I need to know what zip codes the people I do need to reach live in. I also need to know the age range and where they're most likely to live. So, all of this requires analytics, it requires data, it requires constant research. For advertisers, they also want to see that there's actually a return on their investment. In a small city, a smaller market like I started in Greensboro, North Carolina, I remember the car dealership would advertise, and the only thing they had to have a clue as to whether it worked was, wow, we actually sold those 5 cars this week and met our quota for the month. That was really it. Today, there's so much information available and there's so much more you can do. I always said that, when you go to buy a car, it would be incredible to walk into that dealership and see, one of my DJs going through the features of the car on a big screen. And that same video is available on a YouTube channel. The same one is available on the website. The same one has a snippet available on Reels, on IG, and then TikTok. And think about all the different ways you can help your client get so much more for their buck. And guess what? That means more money for you because it used to be that digital, when I first saw remnants of it, oh, that would have been in Detroit. It was added value. Everything digital was, oh, yeah, run a 60-second ad, we'll give you the website. And by the
Mm-hmm.
time I got to DC, the general manager there, for some reason, he was a sales guy. More than a manager, he was just sales. And
Mm-hmm.
so he started selling the website and getting pretty good money for it. He had a realtor that wanted to show how their house, and at that time, streaming video. This was just literally actually months before the iPhone that made its debut. So the open house involved pictures, because and then they had some YouTube embedded embeds, but it was still kind of primitive compared to what the freaking 4K we have available to us today. But I was surprised realtors were paying for this because guess what? People were able to go online, look at homes, and again, it was on a station's website, WPGC, that was reaching African American targeted household. So, it was reaching into areas that they knew that African Americans were interested in, as more African Americans were moving out of DC at that time to PG County, Maryland. So, strategically, look at the advantages there. And once the salespeople were to explain to an advertiser, this is not added value. These are solutions for your products and services. We are putting butts in the seats. We are putting people into your new apartment complexes or your homes. And sometimes they'd, even if it was a new subdivision, back the buy up with a remote. So instead of getting just some 60-second spots for a, let's say at the time, maybe $10,000, $12,000 buy, suddenly you were getting $20,000 for the whole package. And with one digital person able to, you know, uh, hook up the site, wasn't really that much manpower. In fact, at that time, it was a part-time job, certainly wasn't full-time. But that was kind of my first introduction to, wow, we actually can provide a variety of experiences, and it's only going to help us over time get more money.
Definitely. And I remember starting off with those, let's just add the digital in there. Let's just throw it in there. One, because you might not have necessarily known how to show the proof of performance or the ROI. But now, as you mentioned, because you have all of these different softwares and the platforms, and that's one thing that you want to make sure that you do is to research what those capabilities are out there. I was looking at it as an investment. So I know that a lot of times we look at it as an expense, but if what you're saying right now is if I can show you that you invested this certain amount, but I was able to put the butts in the seats, or I was able to sell that home, or to get whatever that ROI is, now that is not an expense, that is more so an investment. And just by having that capability, it allows you to make that sale. So it's something that these capabilities are necessary these days, especially in order to compete. As you said, depending on whatever the size of market you have, you're still competing with these other media companies, not just radio itself. So in order to be able to compete, you have to have this technology. And so that takes us into media consumption. In your role, you've always had to know, how are people consuming media? What are the trends now in how you're seeing people connect with radio? And when we say radio, it meant we're talking about all of these different platforms that you just mentioned.
Well, since we're talking, to an extent, minorities, minorities have adapted to the technologies that have been put in front of them faster than the general marketplace. One was the smart speaker. At a time when the general population was about 22, 23%. Most urban stations listeners were about 27% with Alexa, HomePod to a lesser extent, and Google Home. So there is a very fast adaptation to these technologies. Streaming in cars has become huge, and that has started to also add to the way we've had a progression from the traditional over-the-air signal. We all run, announcements on our airways, pre-records, uh, reminding people, and on air, our DJs as well, reminding people that, how to access our stations on their smart speakers. So smart speaker penetration is huge. It's leveled off a bit because everybody has one. But also, you have all kinds of options for bringing radio into your car. And the connected car has been a major impact, because most radio listening comes from the car. People commute, traffic jams. In fact, the bigger markets have always been able to garner a very large share, and for a while even a premium in advertising rates, due to the fact that you are buying a spot during a traffic jam. You knew people were in the cars, more likely to hear it. If there was a slowdown in the Holland Tunnel here in New York, people are more likely to get your commercial if you can be heard in the Holland Tunnel. Not every station can, but there were huge advantages to being able to uh, sell spots in traffic jams, sometimes a 30% or more premium rate over an average unit rate, just for the fact that, hey, we're getting you between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m., or 3 and 6. So What we're seeing now is that streaming is, continuing to grow. More people are listening to us online. So it's become very important, instead of selling the stream separately, if you're a music station, to actually try and pair your stream with your on-air signal. That means what is on air is being heard on the stream in the marketplace. Now, because of union situations with broadcasters, production people, very often what you hear on air will not be heard on the stream outside of the marketplace. But in the marketplace, unless it is a covered, what's called a covered commercial, what you hear on your on-air signal is what you hear on the stream. So that's how important streaming is becoming. People are going to the stream, and a good part of it is the audio experience has slowly gotten better. No different from streaming services. If you look at Apple Music, look at all the promotion of Dolby Atmos and lossless audio. MQA, which is the technology that Tidal streaming service uses. Spotify is soon going to have some kind of high res or multi surround sound type of situation. Not sure what it is yet. So as the streaming experience gets better and better, that means a higher quality of sound, more people are going to gravitate to streaming once there's less latency, less buffering, less dropouts. Right now, though, our on air signal, usually most of them in cars and HD now, is still the king, but much less so than it used to be.
I love what that you touched on, and I want to go a little bit deeper because sometimes streaming, that term can be ambiguous to a seller. When we're mentioning streaming, we're talking about the actual stream that might be on the website, but as well as if a station has a mobile application, correct?
Correct. Yeah, it could be on an app, as of course, and usually on an app, and it may be a station's proprietary app, but increasingly more, it's a company's app or a shared stream on a third-party app. Like for instance, Audacy has the Radio One stations on the Audacy app. Apps are very expensive, as you know. You know more about apps than I do in terms of building them. And because of the expense, a lot of companies, they prefer to go where there's strength in numbers. And so they'll partner with an Audacy and say, hey, we'll put our group of 55 radio stations, or our company has 12 radio stations. It's much easier for us to pair with your app than it is to try to create our own and promote it, market it.
I love that you touched on that because a lot of people, when they first think about streaming or radio, they say, we have to have an app. But that is before they actually do the research to uncover what that research and development might look like, what that development might look like, what maintenance might look like. Just from your vantage point, having worked with digital, also working in programming, is it always necessary to create an app, or is just having your streaming player available on the website, will that suffice as well?
Well, the problem with a website is that, people, younger audiences are less and less likely to hit a website today. And, being able to access an app some way, shape, or form is just going to be better, period. And again, you're better off with a third-party app. You should always stream on your website. In fact, for years when I was at BLS, that was why people came to BLS's site, just to click streaming. So that's important, but it's increasingly important that on an iPhone or Android, you got to have one touch. I mean, people are just so used to on demand and having it immediately available, to them. The problem with building an app by yourself, I know one company with 2 radio stations that spent $1 million getting apps together for those. And if you have the money, it's good. Most of us just don't.
Of course. But then let's also talk about, you're creating a separate platform, which means that you also have to publicize it. You have to market it. And just like you have to drive tune in for on air, you've got to drive people to your application. And then actually once they get there, you've got to have content. So before you even think about having this developed, think about how you're, as you mentioned, and I love it, and I want people to think more about it. What is the overall experience? What are they seeing when they get there? Are there any exclusive offers that are just available on that app? But then, because what we are also talking about, this is multi-sensory. So you're also listening, but because you're also on the app, there are things and visuals that you're seeing. So graphic design plays a huge role. And then just having some type of engineer that can help with your overall user experience, that really matters.
App only contesting is becoming also big, Ashley. For instance, we play, we're a throwback station, so we play some of Lil Wayne's classic music. We recently gave away Lil Wayne tickets for those signing into the app that opt in only. So the only way to win is to listen on the app for your chance. And so push notifications, DJ Skip is coming on, sending a message through the app. I use my Audacy app actually for breaking news that I may take to the air to the DJs. And increasingly, there's no such thing as an alarm clock. So, imagine being able to set, your alarm on your phone to wake up with your station. Those things are all there. And we even have, because our app is big, we even have the ability, we're training now to go live like you and I are physically on the app itself versus another party, third party. So, it requires a lot of legwork, and it's great if you have a larger partner you can work with to have some of those things available to you and not have to again spend $1 million.
Definitely. And you touched on something that I know is just within all of media. How are we connecting with that next generation, that younger generation? They just do things differently. So tell me a little bit about what you're seeing in their media consumption habits and what you're doing both on air and digitally to attract their attention.
Sure. And really, when you're talking about youth today, you're almost talking about 35 and under because there's such a different audience from those over 35. They grew up with this technology. They're not afraid of it, and they demand it. For us, what we're starting to see, and this is a nationwide trend, with top 40 and hip hop stations, they're having a rough time. That horse is a good, as one of my mentors said recently, has left the barn. And younger audiences, it goes back to the artist community. You really have to be very, very creative because now it used to be that a young rapper, their dream, their destination was a hip hop radio station, whether it was Miss H's original Hot 97.5 in Atlanta, whether it was Hot 97, whether it was WPGC. Your dream as a young new R&B or hip hop artist was to get on one of those many stations that we know and we've listened to for many years. Today, many of them, if they're hip hop, they're happy to be on Rap Caviar on Spotify. That's I've arrived. So, we have to train some younger talent to complement the vets. We have to be where they are. I know several stations in our company. The younger audiences tend to come in more for the podcast version of the morning show than the morning show itself. You need more on-demand content. In fact, just about everything that is of substance has to be offered as an on-demand option. Because if somebody missed the interview with Usher, why would you not allow them to hear and see it later? Very often, when an artist is in studio, we will have our station on like IG Live, and there are so many. There's so many. I guess you can say, just a massive amount of options available on any given mobile phone, whether it's Android or iPhone. So you have to be, really a purveyor of all of those things that you do at your station. You have to touch many parts of that phone's capabilities, whether it's video, whether it's including audio, on demand, uh, push notifications, alerts, opportunities to win to see maybe the artist or fly away to Vegas to see Usher through technology. I think that's probably one of the best ways. And finally, I'll say this: community engagement, getting into the schools, getting into community events that young people are passionate about. This kind of puts us in a position where, we can remind people that we are still angling to be a part of your existence. And we're part of your existence even if you haven't listened to us in a while. If I could just do that, maybe I can get you to tune in and make it a habit again. If not every day, a heavy listener today, according to Nielsen, can be 2 days or
Mm,
three. That can be a
we have
heavy.
we have short attention spans.
Yes, we do, and a lot of places to take that attention.
Yes, it's what you just mentioned is if I were to think about it, we call it omni-channel in marketing, but just having multiple distribution points for people to be able to connect with you. But what I love about digital and social media and all these other platforms is it's another way for someone to discover your brand that might not have done it the traditional way, as you're talking about the contesting that's going on the app. While you're thinking about your overall strategy in the beginning, you want to think about this and those multiple touch points and how you, as you just mentioned, because a lot of the times when we're talking about sales, we're really only looking at what that bottom line number is. However, we're missing the big part of the creativity. It's not just what the product can do, it's how you're using that product and what creative way, and also to go up against your competition because right across the street, they have a team of people that are thinking about
Yeah,
the user behavior and how to align themselves. As you mentioned, if that app can wake you up in the morning, with your favorite station, how to align yourself with that person's actual lifestyle, right?
absolutely. It's crucial.
Awesome. So tell me, if we're talking about lifestyle, what have you noticed as far as the change in listeners' behavior and viewers' behavior from how they were consuming media prior to the pandemic to now post pandemic?
I think that a lot of the binge watching has it's declined, and people are getting back out. I think that one big thing that I notice is that there's a social disconnect. So anything that makes people feel wanted, a part of something, connected is that much more important than it ever was. People are back on dating apps. They're doing all kinds of things that involve social. They're also not just dating, but looking for what I call like pen pals, people that they can grab a drink with, hang out, and chat, whatever. It's extremely important. So in terms of consumption of audio, it is. We do see rises in certain aspects. However, because of more remote work, working from home, uh, the way at work is today is a totally different situation. So you have to often remind listeners, hey, we're your station, whether you're, commuting to work or, you're commuting from your kitchen to your couch after breakfast. And,
Mm-hmm.
we have to kind of play up to that because again, we were an industry that lived by traffic jams. And if you live in New York City, traffic jams are back because everybody during the pandemic that used transit that could afford to bought themselves a car. So you
Mm.
still don't have 2019 levels that have returned to the city, but you got darn near as much traffic, which is insane. So, what we found is that uh, definitely, TikTok has had a major impact. That's first and foremost. Uh, this phenomena began during the pandemic and exploded from there. So, what I believe, and I haven't seen enough research on it, but I know the visual is people are used to it. I think Zoom and all of these conferences, visual wise, a lot more of what we do that used to be just on air only, which was most of it, is now visual components are coming into play on a lot more levels. Also, something that if you're going to do a Zoom only meet and greet, a video event, you're not going to get much traction. People are over it. They're tired of it. They want to come out in person. They want to be together. They want to meet their friends, meet new friends, and that's just the lay of the land. It's just the way it is.
So what it sounds like now, we already know, that's why we even have this podcast, that all roads are leading toward digital. But I can tell you from being in the meetings that we've been in and working with some of the program directors that I've worked with, there was a point in time where digital might have intimidated the traditional experience of radio. And so it was kind of like competitions. Why do we need this? Why does the on-air talent need to stop their day to do a video? Or why are they doing social? How do we shift the perspective of leadership and program directors of seeing digital as competition rather than seeing it as this is also in addition to, and this complements radio?
I was fortunate to have managers that saw it most valuable to invest the money to offer courses. I'm a certified digital marketing consultant. I took the course, it was free. I took the 4 or 5 nights in a row and took the test a couple of times. And so I understand when somebody mentions the basic language. Now, I can't get it deep in it like you. That's why you come along to those meetings with people from the content and the traditional sales side. But you have to know the tools of the trade. You have to know the basic language. I think that companies have to have some kind of training for everybody. They can't just say sell digital. And it's training that's not at your desk. It's a retreat. You need to take everybody off. Maybe it's a ballroom, a small conference room at a hotel, and cater lunch and dinner, and have someone come in person, have several homework videos they can watch. There are many ways to do this, but through the Radio Advertising Bureau and other organizations, there and I heavily recommend the RAB. They have many resources for helping you become, if not getting a certification, just learning the tools of the trade, because it is educating yourself. And anything that requires education that you don't know may be a little frightening at first, but for me, transitioning everyone to digital is crucial, but it requires an investment. And the other thing I will say is, everything that goes out, whether it's a cash giveaway, a listener promotion, let's say you're, trying to do a trip, a digital component is going to be part of it now. Anything we do, any event, has digital sales packages available. It's never going to change, and it's just going to be the way it is. So we might as well teach everyone to appreciate it, embrace it, and know that large amounts of revenue are out there available to us. We just have to know how to ask for it, and we have to know how to deliver for it, because now people can really truly see the return on their investment through the analytics that are generated through digital campaigns.
Definitely. And you hit it, because as you said it, I started thinking about some of the meetings that we were in, but how critical it is just to know enough information to get us in the door. You might not be able to tell us how we will use it. You might not even be able to say how it works, but it's very important just to know what those capabilities are. Those are those buzzwords when you're in a meeting. They might have heard it, if they had a pitch from a competitive advertiser that's across the street that says that they might be able to do programmatic, or they might be able to do original content. Just being able to use those words, and that's what that training does. And then also being able to have someone on your staff that can take those meetings and do that one-on-one training with your sales team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so what I want to take us to now, we know that if we're talking to leadership, we're looking at line items on a spreadsheet, and all they really want to know is it bringing a return on investment? Always remember that digital is basically serving as marketing to a new audience on a different platform. So again, there is that discovery. Take us a little bit more from when you're thinking about the overall brand strategy of how this is attracting new listeners just by using digital, having those stories, those pushes going out on social media, having those IG lives, things are on TikTok, whereas that story is about entertainment. I don't want to compete with the radio station across the street. I'm competing with media. Tell me a little bit more about how digital helps with marketing of the overall station itself.
Well, sure. I mean, like for instance, when you talk, and I'll talk a bit about Nielsen ratings, it's all a methodology. When you talk about average quarter hour and you look at cume and exposure or time spent listening, it is all a methodology. It's a game that we play to. But, something that you have to remember that, Nielsen's ratings come on a percentage an index of every type of category, from age to geographical location. They use census data. So we have to do the same. For instance, if I'm doing a cash contest, I'm looking at a geo targeting campaign to let people know who are not P1 listeners of my station that I'm doing it. One of the easiest ways are through geo targeted Facebook ads. And so companies do them. We have some capability here of doing them in house because we have a digital division. And so imagine your basic graphic you may see designed in your digital department. So that graphic may pop up on the Facebook pages in specific zip codes of people most likely to be African American or Hispanic. We can look and see if they've listened to crosstown stations that are within our format wheelhouse. We can avoid those areas in which they're unlikely to listen, and we can go into these areas and say, hey, did you know that WWW so and so has $1,000 at 10 a.m., noon, 3 p.m., and 5 p.m.? And then, you've got the artist you play there, you've got the DJs to listen to and what to listen for. Or even better, go to the website, go to the app, sign up now, go to our site, sign up. That way, we collect your data. We can get you to opt in for more things. We can do everything from Survey Monkey you to, offer you, a newsletter. E-newsletters are still important. Now, we were surprised people still open those things. They love to see what's going on in
Very
the street.
important.
Very important. So, here's my whole philosophy, and I'll just it's very, very simple. And if I was not speaking to you on a kind of jacked up iPhone the way I have it set up now for us, I'd hold it up. The mobile phone is everything to me. I'm just trying to find out how I can be a part of your life when you're not listening to the radio station. Maybe I can give you a breaking news alert on something that's important. Maybe I can give you a push notification of a chance to win tickets to see Beyonce, which none of us, I don't know. I think I've met one person that actually has been able to secure tickets, and they have more money than I do. I know that much. But, letting people be a part of your lifestyle. Come to our hip hop fashion show. As you said, it's not music, but it's something, you can win your way into that, expresses the culture and celebrates the culture that's around the music. Community events, pushing, asking people, hey, here's your chance to give to this particular charity or to help our kids. Finding some way to get through that phone to you when your phone is not locked into my radio station through an app, or it's streaming through the site or whatever. That's something that I dream of, and I dream of it when I go to bed at night, dream of it when am pushing towards it when I wake up in the morning. How do I drive somebody who may not be listening to my station to, number one, know about my station, and if they already know about it, to possibly tune in?
I like what you said, and I think that that would be the objective and goal for anyone who's creating integrated campaigns. And we're going to go into that one moment, that what that term integrated truly means. But how can I be a part of your life even if you're not listening to the radio station? And that way, that discovery connects you to the radio station that could potentially drive that tune in. Where I'm going to take us now, because a lot of the examples you mentioned right now, working in radio, you know that there are multiple departments, but in order to be successful, they all have to work together. So tell me a little bit about the relationships between sales, programming, non-traditional revenue, which we all know is promotions. How do you guys collectively come together? And I'll chime in and tell a few of my stories as well, but tell people how, when you're in that organization, what you need to do in order to make sure that all of the departments are working seamlessly to execute the strategies.
Well, it comes from the top down. And I've had a variety of managers. If you have, let's say a general manager or a corporate office that, is kind of cliquish or separate, kind of separates everybody, and is, then it's not going to work. For us, we have a weekly marketing meeting. We share our thoughts. It's not a meeting to talk execution. That's up to all of us in our departments. It's a meeting to just talk ideas and say what's happening. We said it is all ideas. If there's a problem, we pull someone aside and talk to them. But it enables everybody to feel comfortable putting ideas on the table, suggesting maybe we could look at this, or how we could look at that, or does this artist really exemplify what we're trying to reach on this particular campaign if we use their likeness, so they give us their permission. So, it's an idea. Um, I have an update from our digital department that goes to everybody in the company every week on how the app's doing. Half of that
Mm.
stuff, I cannot tell you what it means, but I read it. And I try to look for a glossary somewhere, Google, and what the heck this guy is talking about. But, he's excellent. And he gives you a full breakdown of all the challenges the app has and the victories. And thankfully, lately, there are more victories than challenges. So that's a good thing. When there are updates to the app, when there are updates to what's available in the app, I see him, they're on my floor. So anytime he walks by, I'll say, by the way, this morning I had a problem. And they look at it, they look into it. It also requires, everybody never to look at anybody as, well, you don't know anything because you're not a programmer. Oh, you don't know anything because you never worked at Microsoft. Oh, you don't know anything. We all see each other as experts in our particular territory, but we also need to cross over to your territory. So that means you have to see me as not dumb Skip when I come into the digital office to see Ashley, but this is Skip that may not understand what I do, and I may not fully understand what he does, but we can learn and work together. And so, thankfully, I'm in an environment with a boss who comes from programming, but has also been in corporate for a long time and then came back to run our market. So he's seen all the ghosts of yesterday. I do remember, actually, and this is not very long ago, when program directors were told, stay the heck out of the sales department. It's sales and it's programming. Sales just exists to clutter up and destroy your station with a bunch of BS and giving away, one shoe at a time versus a pair. Don't listen to anything. And, slowly, especially after electronic measurement with Arbitron, which would eventually be sold to Nielsen, I started to see many very good program directors and heads of programming just disappear, go away. They're let go. Suddenly they're in a small market or out of the business. And a lot of it, oftentimes, not all, but a lot of it I saw was because of harboring that belief that we're still our fiefdom on the programming side and everyone leave us alone because we're creating great stuff and sales, go sell some commercials. And those people, really, you don't see many of them left today.
Sure. I remember having plenty of meetings when you and then our Hot 97 program director would bring the talent in. And that would allow us to actually ask them questions, learn about their interests, because If we know what their interests are, that helps us to better pursue leads for potential endorsements or potential sales. So I know if you're not thinking in that lane, you want to think in that lane. But then also, I want to know beyond, even beyond that, how can program directors better support sales with little tactics like that, as far as actually being a part of the meeting or having one-on-one meetings, so you know actually what program is thinking about doing. As you know, we have editorial calendars in digital. I'm sure that you guys also are planning out what's going on for the remaining of the year, a lot further in advance, and so that helps to pique the interest to think about who could this particular idea align with. Tell me how you guys do that.
Well, I usually Mondays and Tuesdays I'm with my general sales manager for the block at least I'd say for 30 minutes each of those days, so about an hour a week, and we of course spend more time together. But I mean, we sit in our office and just talk. And some
Mhm.
days when it's when our campaigns are out, we're waiting for responses. We may just talk about jocks, music, but it's learning each other's thoughts, feedback from our clients that she will have before it comes to me is going to be important to understand how our clients feel about our stations. Because guess what? Your clients will also tell you how they're interacting with the competition. And so there's lots of intel to be understood there. I recommend that every brand manager or program director spend more time in the sales department, understand how the business is done, ask questions about how that advertising came to be or how that digital campaign came to be. What won this person over and had another person or agency not so sure? I think asking why is something we don't do enough of in this business. Hey, that's great. I saw we are up 117% with so and so cable this quarter, but why? What made them spend more? Very seldom will you ever hear a GSM tell you, "Oh, they just had more money to spend." No, they can tell you where that money came from and why. They can tell you if a CEO left who spent more in TV and this one believes more in radio, or this one believes more in general in digital, so we lost more because our digital isn't built up as much as so and so. And I'll mention a increasingly you are meeting uh, agency people who are more aligned with the digital world than they are with the traditional advertising world. That is going to be a fact of the business. So
Mhm.
when you have sales go in, unless they're accompanied with someone like you, they have to be trained very well because they can slip up and say something and let that CMO or whoever it is they're meeting with, low level to high level, know that they really don't understand their product or at least the way they're selling it. And so it's a very very different dynamic. But I sum it up by saying uh, get in the sales manager's office and ask why. Ask if business is up, why? Ask if it's down, why? Who did we leave? What category? One of the biggest right now that is affecting our business is automotive. Every 6 months, I was told this by our automotive person. Yeah, every 6 months, the dealership says, "Oh, another 6 months. Just wait. We got plenty of money for you. We'll be stocked up with cars." And 6 months, oh, another 6 months now. you know. And what you have to do is go into that dealership, say, "I understand you're telling me 6 months, but guess what? Do you really want to be there in 6 months when everyone has inventory and everyone's competing for that new sale? Because we know the avalanche is coming. My lease is almost up. I got a few other people because a lot of folk that bought their cars, their older cars are given out or they want something new and they waited throughout the pandemic. And look, in the last year or so, there's been nothing available. So now you've got people that are going to be coming back into the market, leases that are going to be up. And so, we have to go into these dealerships and agencies and say, "Hey, do you want to be the one that waited too long, and now you've got too much competition. You're losing your mind. But if you had been on a few months earlier, and some car dealers are actually getting that message, and we're starting to see some of that business come back. But we also have to look at the same time the aftermarket. Service is one of the major ways dealerships make their money. What if you have a Lexus from 2015 that you or 2010 that you just love, but the dealership you bought it from went out of business and you were looking for a new place. There's so many different ways that you can bring people back into dealerships for existing car service. And while they're there, maybe if you got enough inventory on the lot, they'll see something and they can talk to the dealer about getting out of the old and into the new. But it's a good example. But we all have to be very, very much a part of the sales process, and we are all in sales. It's just the reality that we didn't realize until recent years.
So sales, and if you're a good salesman, you know this is ongoing education. So it's not just the education of knowing your offerings and your capabilities, but it's also knowing the education of whatever the industry and the vertical that you're going after. So take us further into that, and I love it because we always sold by the vertical. What are other verticals where you're seeing a lot of opportunity right now?
Well, I mean, look, health is everything. I mean, there's a lot of money available from health coverage. So we're seeing now individual health systems, HMOs, hospitals, all of them are coming to the table with various options because they see the potential for all of this flow of people who are going to be in need of a lot of those benefits that are, either going to be lessened or going away entirely. Definitely in the insurance side of things, uh, you know, and here's the other one, banking, fintech, the ability to do literally, everything you need on an iPhone from, even arranging a loan. I was talking to a very senior banking person a couple of years back during the pandemic, and he said, "Man," he said, "I think the only time my son's been in a bank is to come see his dad. His dad was a commercial lender." And he said, "I can't get," he said, and he was like, "Why do people go to banks?" He's like, "Well, once they stop, daddy's not going to be working anymore." But, it's just to say that, banks offer all kinds of services, financial planning, small business, large business, uh, auto loans, housing, and being able to get people to go back into a bank. Remember, most of them were on all kinds of hybrid and closed and reduced hours during the pandemic, so people kind of got used to, oh well, let me go ahead and download that app. And then you've got payment services, so anything that can get people more engaged with traditional methods of financial planning, banking, retirement. All of those things have come back full circle. And ultimately, Ashley, entertainment.
Mm.
People were pent up for so long. You can't get any Beyonce tickets now. People want to go out. They want to live. They want to see each other. They want to feel just the experience you get when you're around a bunch of people. It's something that you just can't put a price on. People are paying more for experiences and travel. I think travel's going to be a great category for us. It's been a little expensive, and some airlines have scared the hell out of us. But
Yes.
slowly, and the people on those airlines on the
Yes.
planes, but those things are being worked out. I mean, in New York City, I haven't been there, but I hear LaGuardia. There was a reason I stopped going. LaGuardia Airport has gone through $1 billion revitalization, and I saw pictures of it, and I was like, "Well, what country is this in?" And this is happening everywhere. Newark Airport is revamping terminals. JFK has, I think, they just set aside a 4.3 billion or something to redo some of JFK's infrastructure. It is an exciting time for people who want to travel. People are getting back out. They want to get out. Cruise lines are booked to the helm, to the hilt. So, those are just a few of the many. And here's another one. People are very interested in certifications, which means education. community colleges. People are thinking, well, maybe it is time to get that master's degree. We're in a very changing employment space. Employment is a huge category, by the way. Jobs are still out there, a lot of blue collar to white collar jobs. People are still changing like constantly. So you've got companies that are looking to secure employees. You've got companies that are, definitely in need of finding people, finding the best and finding the brightest. And so, these are all great, great opportunities, and especially education, because people are seeing the value of certification. And those that are older are going back for these certifications because they see the writing on the wall. We're going to have to work a lot longer. The idea of retiring at 65 is becoming kind of a pipe dream, especially as they know that we're living longer and have the education and the insight now through medical expertise to live healthier.
Yes, and I love every single vertical that you mentioned. One, when you just think about, as we're talking integrated media and that marketing campaign, to be able to hear about it, that brand awareness over the air. But if I'm thinking about travel and I think about my last trip to Jamaica, all it took was one video on social media that showed me this is what this beach looks like, this is how clear this water is, this is my room. That was the complete user experience. And I said, you know what? I've heard about it. Now I'm seeing it. And so now basically that brand recognition is there and the credibility is there. And that credibility also works hand in hand with the brand that is coming from the radio station. And we use the term and always live and local. So to be able to have that live and local trusted brand share some information with me, if you're talking about travel, if you're talking about employment, if you're talking about certifications, we just want to make you alert of it on air, but then we want to take you a click deeper. And that's where that digital comes in, because it can give you more education than the time that you have just on air. So now what I want you to do is, because we've worked on a lot of campaigns, but tell me, what is that? Was there one moment where the light bulb went off where you said, you know what, digital really works. I want to continue to use it, and I love this campaign. And now that I've done this campaign, I'm actually getting more ideas on how we can elevate it for the next campaign.
Well, I mean, there were many. I think that, you elevated at the time when we worked together our Women's Expo tenfold. I think that, we played around with apps. We did some technology oriented things, but really being able to give clients, potential, the sponsors, an opportunity to, go beyond just, hey, join us at the convention center on Saturday, but giving them a preview of what's going on, giving them video from past events, giving them, all kinds of on-site notifications, push notifications. I said, man, this is what going to a trade show, which was really what, that expo was at the time. Going to an expo, this is what it is when I am able to get all the information I need to make the most of my day. Being able to, because it used to be we'd sit there, a microphone now in the grand hall, but and there was and no one could hear it. It was too much noise. But being able to simply push an alert on your phone in 15 minutes, the keynote from Robert Roberts of ABC is starting in the main auditorium. Those things really gave me just, at that time, about 6, 7 years ago or more today, it gave me a real clue. Okay, this is where it's going, and this is so much smarter than screaming in a microphone, and people aren't going to hear you, and they're going to still come over. Where's the main panel today? Where's so and so? Where's so and so performing? But and also, I think just digitizing so much content that you guys were able to get sponsored and put on to YouTube and other platforms. So I think just seeing, a chance to experience online so much visual content. 50 Cent, I remember doing a campaign for Lexus. It was kind of like tell your story. And seeing this artist able to physically, within a few minutes, beautifully shot, by the way, and seeing more of those custom shoots that you guys did, in which we would see, these beautiful renderings of just the backgrounds were unique, the stories were unique. Being able to mix them with their music and other video of them on stage, and there were those things we did that for me it was very, very different than what I experienced just a short time earlier.
Because you mentioned events, I really want to hone in on that. I am a big person of looking at the media plan and saying, hey, we're leaving a lot of money on the table. When you're talking about those tentpole events that you know that your community is going to come out in full force, and you're thinking about your advertiser, how can you really make this more valuable and for them to get a return on
Hmm.
investment? Your events have a
Yeah.
pre, a day of, and a post range of where you can put media, supporting media. And so, as you were mentioning, I was just thinking about a campaign that we did with Maybelline. And it started off online where you could come in, and I believe Mary J. Blige was performing, or we had someone major. And if you wanted to look like a celebrity, they were going to take you into the celebrity green room, have a celebrity makeup artist do your makeup, and then you kind of had a little mini photo shoot. So not only did we start online, we used every single digital asset that we had available. So that not only helps you with your bottom line, but it also proves the value that can live on, because these are things that are evergreen that can stay on social media. We then did a post recap where we summed up and showed the entire experience with either a video or a gallery. And these are things that you're sharing with your advertiser after the fact. And what for someone, if they're a salesperson and they're taking it to leadership, how much better does it make you look to have that visual proof of performance, and then also to show that engagement? That helps you not lose the sale the next year. It helps you to grow it, because when you're thinking about that initial idea, I'm always thinking about my next sale after, while I'm making this sale. I know what those capabilities are, depending on, what the budget is. So based off of what you said, always really think about the different phases of the campaign. It's not just putting the on air, and it's not just that one social post. Digital content in itself can be repurposed. And so that one helps you to drive expenses down. So you're not always recreating new content. And you never know how that case study will help you sell that next advertiser that might be in the industry. And then right now, we know we're not really doing directional sales. So that idea can pretty much sometimes work for anyone, simply because it's going after the interest of the consumer. Uh, did you have anything else that you wanted to add to that?
Well, no, I just wanted to say that, something I appreciated that, you and the team, Avery, Mike Fox, that, something I thought that was done very well was, starting campaigns that led to activations. And, something today that I think means as much to a client as it always did is that one-on-one. Influencers are everything. You have, I remember the book The Tipping Point, and reading it years ago, one of the best business books still today ever written, and talking about the fact that each of us know on average, 200 other people, and businesses pay dearly for the opportunity to connect with your friends, your influential friends. And look, how many friends do your friends know? And when you add them all up together, that's a lot of opportunity for anyone with a product or service that's targeted towards you and your age group and your ethnicity and the people that you connect with, the zip codes that you roam in, your travel experiences. Because, you telling someone to try a product or service, I remember when Uber first came into the marketplace. I had no idea what it was. And I remember I went with a person that worked with Nielsen at the time. And we were going to a women's yearly award, women's Billboard, Women of Something. Every year, Billboard does an award, industry publication for women in the industry. And we were going to the lunch. And as a gift, when we arrived, they gave us Uber cards, good for $25. Well, you get a ride in a limo for $25? That's not going to work. What is this? And she was like, it's not a limo, it's a car service. Well, what car service is going to take me anywhere for under $100? She says, not that kind of car service. I'm thinking some big stretch Escalade and, some dude with a black cap and, black tie and all this. And no, I mean, I remember trying it after that billboard thing, when I went back to the station, and I was like, well, wow, how this is actually going to be? Yeah, you all just download the app, put this card number in, and I wrote it. And I'm like, this is the most brilliant thing ever. But that came from an event where you handed those cards out to 400 people. And look what that did,
Mm-hmm.
because if I tried it, how many other people tried it? Pretty good percentage. And guess what? If they didn't try it, the next time, the name Uber popped up somewhere. Oh, yeah, I got a card at that event last week. And so, being able to connect people, in person, and both through digital aspects. When that Uber card looked like a credit card, but on the back it walked you download the Uber app, da da da. And I'm like, wow, so, great simple campaigns can lead to, just multitudes of success.
All right, Skip. So, what I want to talk about is the bread and butter of radio. And I know we always talk about the influencers that are on social media, but we know that the original influencers came from radio and our DJs. When you said, let's keep it simple, and I think about all of the endorsements that you hear over the radio, let's talk about how we bring those endorsements to life on digital. Tell me about some of those success stories and some of the campaigns you've worked on where you use one of your own air talents to bring a particular product or service to life online.
Well, I think one of the campaigns we did here when the block first launched, we had Nick Cannon, but we did a promotion with Aladdin on Broadway, and he actually took his kids to see it, and then did in his Insta stories recaps of how much he enjoyed. The seeing the experience again, and posted a graphic for us. We have done very well with those. Dunkin' Donuts is another one. Wendy's, huge campaigns. They did food deliveries, and everyone posted pictures of the deliveries on their social with whatever that particular food is during the week. The influencers, I'm glad you brought up influencer campaigns, because we have rate cards today that pay our DJs based on their number of followers. If they're, for anything they post, they get paid, for campaigns, based on their number of followers. Some of our people have as much as 150,000, 300,000 followers. So when advertisers ask for an influencer, we're able to recommend some of our talent. And, it's really, it's the way people used to get paid as DJs. When they were doing remotes, join Skip at the BP gas station this weekend for the new, convenience store located. While you get gas, you can get your latest junk food. And, now all that's influencer. If you like Coca-Cola, their campaigns in which you're holding a can of Coke by your car. And so that's become such an important part of what we do. And, there's another campaign we're working on that involves men's products. And they want to send one of our DJs like their little beard oil and all their stuff. And, these are things that, immediately get attention, because when you're an influencer and you have that many followers, definitely people are going to pay attention. We have a new the HBCU Classic, the Black Colleges. That's come back to New York, to MetLife Stadium. Definitely social posts were a big part of that to push last year's Howard Morehouse game. So that was important. But yeah, I mean, just about every concert we're involved in is heavily, we're heavily provided with graphics, literally counting down to the day of the show, a week away, day away. Those are becoming extremely important for us. So yeah, it's huge part of our strategies today.
And I also want to just make mentions for anyone who's listening and they say, well, we might be in a smaller market, we might not have the digital team or the resources. I also want you to think about your scale. I remember when we did a campaign when I was in Atlanta with Big Tigger. It was with Carnival. And I wanted to send a video person out. They said, no, we are only covering Big Tigger. So what Big Tigger did is every time he would post to IG, that would aggregate to a landing page. So this is something that the talent was able to do. So our listeners were able to go onto the website, driving traffic to the website, getting your page views. And additionally, just like you have time spent listening over the air, you have time spent online as well. So everyone was just going through the gallery, seeing him going, stopping at the various stops along the way on the cruise, the cuisine selection, the entertainment. And what does that do? That makes you more intrigued, one, because of the credibility of the influencer, but now you're basically peeling back that curtain of what is a Carnival cruise like. And so when you're thinking about these ideas, don't let them intimidate you, let them inspire you. And then depending on whatever your resources are, you can actually scale them down to make them work. And you work with your advertiser too, because sometimes they have resources that they would like to share as well, because at the end of the day, we need for the campaign to work. So thank you for that, Skip. What I want you to do now is tell us, or for anyone who is listening and they're intrigued and they say, I don't even know where to start. What would be that first step for a program director if they want to get their toes wet with digital?
I think first, websites like the Radio Advertising Bureau, the RAB, the NAB also has resources. You can definitely search advertising. Several great agencies, and I hate giving names, but I've seen Dentsu, DET, what is it? DETN. That's it.
DENTSU.
Yes, it. I don't spell on the fly very well, but Dentsu has an excellent
I can see it in my head.
Dentsu has an excellent website. There are others too now. Don't give it Burrell, and they actually will give you a lay of the land and will give you some of the terms and tools of the trade, because again, they're looking for businesses that may not know digital well either. Many traditional businesses do not. If you're a rental car service and you've been family owned for years and years, or a pizzeria, you may not know that much about digital. You may have no clue. And so they often have many resources, especially for small businesses. You also have government resources. The FCC, Federal Communications Commission website, fcc.gov, they are starting to get heavily involved into solutions and opportunities for understanding media, and definitely all that they are more traditional now, but it is there, and there are links to take you where you can get more information. But I think that's where you start. But remember this: if you're in a smaller market, you're going to have less resources for digital advertising than you will in the Chicagos, the New Yorks, the LAs. So, there are many opportunities with a much smaller amount of social numbers, with a much smaller digital footprint. You may have one digital sales manager and an assistant for two or three stations, versus the 20 odd people when you were here in New York working with just three radio stations. So it's again, it's all about scale, and
Mhm.
building a Facebook page, an Instagram, maybe that's the place you start. And tell everybody, just one rule for content: make it interesting. It's always a rule of, give, your listeners and advertisers, when they go on your assets, the things that are meaningful, things that even inspire. Hey, look, everybody's looking for a hug, a laugh, and some inspiration. Hey, give them a good laugh. Find something funny. If your cat does something, record it. Cat knows how to open a jar or something. Get that on video for us. Let us see what that cat can do. But simple things, definitely make all the difference. And that, I think, is one rule to remember when really building a good page.
And I like what you said there, because when I think about just content strategy, I always take it back to a newspaper. There are different sections. So when you are posting, you want to think about what does well, what is interesting, what is impactful. So you might have your news and entertainment, you might have cooking, you might have sports, you might have politics. Make sure that you have a range. And I know that I learned early on with my publishing is that you just can't only publish your own content. There's a lot more information and news that's going on outside of just what's going on in your local backyard. So even for local stations, having a combination of, and this is where you can do it, on your social and your digital platforms, where you're talking about the local stories as well as those national stories. And you just brought up something for me. When we were at WBLS, one of the highest performing content categories was inspiration. And I believe every morning, and it probably was the Steve Harvey show, it would begin with a motivational quote. I know Frank Ski does it too. And that's what I wanted to get us to, as far as where do you begin? A lot of your content is already on air. Bring it to life online. And I know very early on, I learned through Jeff Thacker, you do not always want to be investing in new content that has not had proven performance, because there's an expense behind that. So if we know that we're already attracting audiences on air and what they like, why don't we bring whatever that inspiration is, or whatever that topic is, and build it out, because you can go even further online. And so that would be where I would start. If you're saying, I want to start in digital, I might not have a digital team. A lot of stations do not have a digital team. So what you can think about is your own air talent, as Skip was saying. Everyone wants to peek into their lifestyle. I know with Deja Vu, she was a health nut. And so we did a campaign where we incorporated, what do you remember what brand that was? Not right off, but what we did is we had, she did a smoothie line. And what we did is we did video content for her, and we incorporated the different vitamins that she would incorporate into her day and her healthy living lifestyle. And the segment was called Healthy Her. Oh, there it is Invite Health. And so those are just things that help the audience get to better understand, one, the talent, and then two, while they're learning about the talent, because they're interested, that credibility also comes into play, with whatever that particular product or service is. So Skip, just thank you so much for joining us today. Do you have anything you want to add before we close out?
No, I mean, I so appreciate the work that you're doing, and this is something that everybody in their own way, with their own resources, can take advantage of. This is where we are. It's not even the future. It's here, been here. And so the more we can learn how to garner advertising dollars for our industry, the safer, better off we're going to be. And it's a wonderful learning process. I've enjoyed being on with you, and I think it's just going to continue to grow, and other resources and opportunities will be available. So I had fun today. Thank you, Ashley. I always appreciate getting our long phone conversations out there, and
Yes.
this is fun.
Yes, we'll have you on
All right.
again.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to As a Result. Find new episodes on the Dimensions Media YouTube channel and all your favorite podcast platforms. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn on notifications. For industry updates, sign up for the As a Result newsletter at dimensionsmedia.com. Thanks for listening.